Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all the ships at sea. Comes a time in every nation's history when it is necessary to finally wise up to the verified threats, either external or internal. Every one of us, for decades now, has heard the name George Soros bandied about as the boogeyman, Satan, or evil incarnate itself. I'm here this particular day to tell you that all of those descriptions would be completely accurate, and it is past time for each of us to finally learn the full details of this demon, for the hope that we would hold our elected officials accountable to either their direct dealings with him, or they're simply looking the other way as he continues to wreak his maniacal reign of terror upon a largely unsuspecting American public, among others. Please allow this commentator to begin by letting you in on what may or may not be a secret to some, or even all of you. George Soros sat for a 1998 televised interview with Steve Kroft of the CBS program 60 Minutes, almost 30 years ago. It was during that interview that Kroft brought up the fact that George Soros had, during his teenage years, been taken in by a Christian Nazi official as a supposed son. This was permitted only because his wealthy father had paid the Nazi official large amounts of money to do so. It turns out that at the age of 14 years, Soros accompanied this Nazi official, or de facto father, on his daily job duties of stripping Jews of their possessions and putting them on rail cars to their certain deaths in the Nazi death camps. Now, in a little fairness to Soros, he was only 14, but he also went along for the trips. Kroft proceeds to ask Soros during the interview if he felt even slightest guilt or remorse during those times, seeing that he was in fact a Jew himself and could be on the side being sent to his own death in the camps of horror. He then replies, "No, not actually at all." That, folks, should tell us all that we need to know about this demon from hell. He evidently is a psychopath without a conscience. Later in the same interview, Kroft asks him if he is religious or believes in God, to which Soros quickly replies, "No." Now, I realize that this world has its fair share of atheists and agnostics, but tie that to the fact that he is also a psychopath without a conscience, and you begin to see the very real danger that lurks within him. So, friends and colleagues, Soros escaped to London in 1946 and subsequently to the United States in 1956. Quickly working his way into the Wall Street financial sector, fueled largely by the fact that he was a Jew and that most of Wall Street is controlled by wealthy Jews, Soros ended up creating his own hedge fund called Quantum Fund in 1973. And from there, folks, the rest is history. Soros went on to prove that he is truly a soulless demon in his massive deeds of tyranny against entire nation states. On something now officially known as Black Wednesday, which happened on September 16, 1992, Soros and Quantum Fund had sold off billions of British pounds during the days preceding September 16th, which resulted in the British government withdrawing from the European Exchange Rate Mechanism, or ERM. The ensuing devaluation of the British pound caused great havoc in the country and on world markets. Afterwards, Soros bought back British pounds, repaid the money he had borrowed from investors, and still made a tidy profit of about $1 billion. Bingo, Soros had made a name for himself as a ruthless cutthroat investor with zero care for the lives he could ruin in the process, a trait that would lead to where he is today, unfortunately. So old Georgie went on to essentially ruin the economies of Indonesia, Malaysia, South Korea, and Thailand in 1997 in similar fashion. Noting why he believed in the massive weaknesses in their currencies, his quantum group proceeded to ruin lives and cause mass suicides, all while old George sat back and fattened his corporate coffers and personal bankroll simultaneously. In the end, the International Monetary Fund, or IMF as is better known, would need to step in and loan all of these nations, except for Malaysia, which refused the bailout, massive billions of US dollars in a desperation move to keep them afloat. Once again, ruthless George had rode roughshod over entire nations, their economies, and their citizens' personal livelihoods, and all without a single ounce of remorse. Do we notice a trend here? Without getting repetitive to you, my viewers, the facts show that he went on to do similar terrorism against Japan and Russia currencies in subsequent years. Now, any of us can reason that he was just an astute investor who noticed economic weaknesses in several nations' currencies on world exchanges. However, the very real human impact of jobs, lost lives, lost families, ruined, and even divorces caused seems to have completely escaped the empathy-impaired brain of this psychopath. However, kids and cousins, I have not yet touched on the most pernicious side of Mr. George Soros up to this juncture. Allow me to expound. What we have, loyal viewers, is a rogue wealthy zealot with a leftist bent and absolutely nobody on the global stage to rope him in. In fact, in his older years, he has chosen to go the highly dangerous philanthropy route that so enamors wealthy Jews the world over, like Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg, for example. And while some of their charitable endowments seem at first glance to be noble and a good cause, further examination often proves the opposite. We have on the record that Demon George has funded everything from open borders for the United States to BLM protests in 2020 to Antifa uprisings upon the nation in that year and years to follow. Additionally, his Open Society Foundation has been the leading funder and organizer of the now infamous No Kings protests at various locations across the United States in direct opposition to a duly elected and legally standing U.S. President, Donald Trump, and kids and cousins. What I do not have record of at this time is how many U.S. politicians he has potentially bought and paid for, if you catch my meaning. It is those criminals who have chosen to look the other way and allow Soros carte blanche to continue about his nefarious antics completely unabated. Now, regardless of your political leanings, everyone under the sound of my voice has to look at just what we know as documented on this man. He is about political unrest, that is evident. He is about civil uprisings, that is evident. And the more concerning thing is he is so wealthy that funding coups, mass riots, or insurrections is well within his capabilities. While the founding fathers of this land did in fact value the ability of the common man to protest and petition against things he saw as unjust, they never considered that one man could become so wealthy that he could ruin entire nations in one fell swoop, as he has done economically in the past and now does with unchecked political powers in the present. In researching for this video, it came to my attention that evidently President Trump and his Department of Justice are potentially considering federal charges on George Soros. And if that is in fact true, all I can say is, what took you so long? While I believe vehemently in freedom of expression and am a strong proponent of freedom to petition, I also believe it is evident that Soros has unchecked power in today's world and that he in the least needs to be investigated. In closing, it is worth noting that George Soros is now 96 years old, and so will most likely not be around to torment entire nations for much longer. The flip side of that is that his massive wealth, endowments, and Open Society Foundation will inevitably ensure that his often polarizing views and initiatives will live on far after he does. We can only hope, folks, that some government or judiciary in the least ropes him in before much more damage has been done, either in the United States or internationally. Good night, my loyal viewers, and sleep well.